Howdy, y'all. It's Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom with Elden Ring's DLC just a few months away. I thought, you know what? I'm going to replay Elden Ring, and I've been replaying it and reliving all the fun. And thought, you know what? Let's do some rankings through this. Let's do some tier making fun. And I just want to go through and rank the bosses. How are they? Who's the best? Who's the worst? Who's in between? So let's go through, and not necessarily in any order, but I feel like there might be one or two missing on here, but I don't think so. We'll see here. 'Cause not every mini boss obviously is on here, but main bosses that you have to fight through areas that give you some sort of reward stuff. So our first one is Renala, Queen of the Full Moon. Ooh, yikes! I It's hard because is it really a hard fight? No, but is it a fight that you remember? Yes, because of the atmosphere. The first off, you have just creepy the student stuff with no legs, weird, and then full moon battle area. So I think just for the sake of the battle arenas and really just throwing you off, I'd at least be B tier. It's a lot of fun because it's different. Yeah. Whereas you have things like Godric the Grafted, creepy factor next tier. Is he just obnoxious to fight? Yeah, he really kind of is, and it just irritates me. I don't know why. I think he's actually a C tier to me. Of I don't know, the wind stuff that just blocks most attacks and stuns you is just really obnoxious. Yeah, really, really obnoxious. Not something that I ever look forward to fighting him. He's just kind of like a great. Here we are again. Woot woot. So yeah, just trying to think if there's any other thoughts I have on him. No. Okay, Commander Nile. If memory serves, that's in Castle Sol later on in the winter area, and I actually really like this fight. I think it's an A tier fight pretty easily, just because there's nothing special about it. It's you're fighting basically yourself in a different reality in a way. You're like someone that was just a part of the army versus you rising up in this different way. I just feel like he's just your counterpart in the military version of Elden Ring, and is defending his fort to the bitter end, and plus he summons in soldiers to help fight with him, and it just makes for an interesting concept that normally I don't like just dual gank fights, but Elden Ring's a little different because you can do so as well, and I think it balances that out and makes it an interesting back and forth, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think there's some really good things to be said there. And this is not just going to be a ranking on hard difficulty by any means, but also just what did I find enjoyable about them, right? Loretta, Knight of the Helig Tree. Nothing special about her. It just felt like a reskin of the knight you fight in Carrion Manor. So she's kind of just C tier. I just don't really care. She's there, you fight her, and you move on. Red Wolf Radagon. This gives me Dark Souls 1 vibes when you have to fight the wolf that was oh my goodness, I can't remember its name right now, but he was the pet of one of the guys in the DLC that you go back in time to help or to defeat as well. He's a wolf with a sword, a magic sword that appears. Yay. I find it's boring. It's a D tier for me because I just always kind of go, okay, he's going to be obnoxious randomly because he just streaks across the battlefield, destroying everything in his path, and you just have to time your dodges. That's about it. I mean, that's obviously the case for just about everything, but yet he's not memorable in that way other than just being obnoxiously silly. Godskin Apostle. How do we? I don't remember him very well. I fought him a few times in the tower. That's silly hard to get into the first couple times you do it because you end up falling off of it every time. It's so frustrating. So honestly, he's just F tier because he's boring and lame. And by the time you end up getting to him, honestly, the journey to him was harder than him. Elimer of the Briar. This dude, how do I rank this guy? He's probably for me A tier just because he is so in ways different of a fight because of his sword, and then you get his sword after you defeat him, which is really cool. And it's worth it. Like I could actually see his castle right now in the playthrough I'm doing, and I'm like, want that because I like that sword, and I don't even know if I could wield it with the build I'm doing right now. I'm doing a faith build, so I think I at least have part of it because I think it's faith and arcane, but I cannot remember. So anyway, it's just he's very aggressive. He's very strong. The battlefield area is not very big. He definitely is obnoxious, very obnoxious. Um, yeah, yeah. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. Okay, this might be heretical in a way, but for me, it's an S tier fight only in that. Well, okay. So obviously, this is one of those fights that we've seen in other Dark Souls games previously, where there's a gimmick, and the gimmick is so silly broken. So is it actually a hard fight? No. If you use the gimmick, it's not at all. It's not. But I think everything about the fight is just the first time. I mean, do you remember that first time when you fight Rykard and you're like, okay, there's got to be a second phase to this, but how does this even possible? And then he turns over and it's like his head's on the back of the snake thing, and he pulls out the sword from his mouth. What is happening right now? I just think there's something special, especially that first time with that fight. Really neat, really, really cool stuff. Yeah. Good fight there. Fire Giant. This is a tough one. I honestly find Fire Giant just obnoxious and stupid. He actually, to me, is a D tier fight, and somebody's in the comments going to be like, if they watch this, get good. I know. He just doesn't work for me, and I don't know what it is, what happened with it, but he just annoys me. It's not that it's even like a terrible fight in a way. It's just some of his moves are so hard to avoid. And I know there's people on there that can do all the avoidance stuff and somehow dodge roll right through his massive snow throw. And it just annoys me that whole, just some of his moves, just they're so one shot KOE all the time. Like he just has that big damage burst. And he's just annoying. I never found him to be fun. The only time I found it fun was when I went back through and played through 2, right? And I'm so crazy leveled that me and, even working with a friend, just tear him apart because we know exactly how to fight him, what to run away from, and we have so much more damage than even what we had the first time. Valiant Gargoyles. There's nothing wrong with these. They're just kind of enemies we've already seen in a way, but now there's 2 of them, so they're just kind of C tier, whatever, they exist. Excuse me. Mimic tier. Mimic tier is honestly, this is hard. Again, it's not that it's a hard fight necessarily, but it's really cool to see. I think I might actually put this in S tier in a way. I don't know. I might put him in A tier. I love the concept of being able to fight against yourself with the computer controlling it to see what you can and can't do. I think I'm gonna put him in high A tier just because he's easy to cheese in a way because you can tell the AI doesn't always know exactly what to do with your build, but he will change his play style based on what you do as well. Next one, Godskin Noble. This actually, to me, it's funny. The Volcano Manor, he goes straight to S tier, and here's why. Everything about his fight is shocking because you're not expecting this massive character to be as fast as he is, and his spin roll is the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen in your life, right? So good, so silly, so ridiculous, so frustrating, but so satisfying to beat him. So satisfying. And usually when you get to Volcano Manor, you're just not quite ready for him. He's just a shock to the system at times. Godfrey, First Elden Lord, Horlu. Wow. Yeah, let's put him in F tier. He's tier. No, he is in S tier. He's the top of the. Honestly, I think he's one of the best bosses because you get to see basically yourself again in the past. He wasn't some crazy epic just royalty that came to it by birth. He was someone that was like you, a tarnish that came up through the ranks and did the stuff. And it's so funny that when you get to phase 2 of his fight, what you actually experience is him just being himself in his native land. I think that's really cool, and it's a lot of fun. Um, Crucible Knight and Misbegotten Warrior before you go fight Star Scourge Radon. I don't ever remember these fights, but I usually did caster builds, so it's just kind of a C tier. No, they're just trash villains that they just added L together. So we're just going to put them down here at D tier. They're lame. Margaret the Fell Omen, the first real boss that you truly like come across as far as not a mini boss kind of deal. And as long as, you're following the storyline, obviously. Wow. Margit is he memorable? Yes. Is he better than Godric the Grafted? I would say so, because it's a more of a balanced fight of learning these interesting move styles and play styles. I will say sometimes Elden Ring has this issue, as you can see with so many of these things on here. They're just so big and massive. It's hard sometimes for the camera to always see. It's not as bad as some of the Dark Souls games, but it is rough. But I really enjoy Margit. I actually am going to put him up in A tier. Really good. Star Scourge Radon. When I first started fighting him, I hated him, but as time has gone on, I've really come to appreciate everything about him, and I honestly think he's an S tier fight because he's something special. Very the area is so aesthetically pleasing, and it's in its simplicity, and why it's also aesthetically pleasing though is because so much of the area is also influenced by how much Star Scourge Radon does to the battlefield, not necessarily to change it, but just to show his power and the gravity magic that he has, and then the comet as well. So cool. Lich Dragon Fortisax. I fought him like once or twice, and I don't remember it being very memorable. It wasn't bad, but I always like dragon fights. He's definitely at least B tier. He's not nearly as memorable as the next thing on our list, which is Dragon Lord Placidusix. Easily one of my favorite fights because, yeah, I've got to put it up in S tier. I'm not gonna lie. He is so good of a fight because he's intense. Does he have one hit KOs? He does, but yet they're telegraphed, and it's more of just the reality hits you. I have to go back in time to even fight this thing, and even when I do, it's only like what, 2 heads, and he's missing like his 3rd head. Like, this isn't actually the fully powered up Dragon Lord Placidusix. This is an injured Placidusix. Yikes! Right? That's crazy. That is crazy. Yeah, pretty cool. Morgoth the Omen King. We have Margit the Fell Omen, and then Morgoth the Omen King. Right? Is it just him transformed? I can't ever remember. I mean, I always enjoy the fight, but you also usually can summon in Melina. It's a B tier for me. I don't ever come across it as like super memorable. It's super weird too to fight towards the end of the game and then realize I have more to go do. Excuse me. Moog, Lord of Blood. Great fight. Crazy hard, crazy challenging, crazy interesting. Definitely an A tier. I think. This is hard. I think he's up at A tier for sure. Just beautiful aesthetic, very, very dark and mysterious. Very cool fight. Malekith the Black Blade. Yeah, Beastman go brr. All right. And he is, as much as I get so frustrated in that fight, it is an S tier fight because it's challenging and it's so much fun to work with friends to do it because there's such a fascinating interaction to fight with him. But alone, man, what a challenge. And beautiful, interesting, just so different between phase 1 and phase 2. That's really good. Fia's Champions, this is F tier. It's so stupid because they're just summons and they're not very good summons. They're terrible. That's all. They really are. They're just boring. They're not a good fight. They're just not. All right. Radagon of the Golden Order and the Elden Beast. Since they're put together, this is hard. And they make sense to be put together because they're basically phase 1 and phase 2. Radagon is in ways slow, but not. Elden Beast is just massive and obnoxious and teleports. I'll be honest, as the end of a game, it wasn't great. Um, it's not bad, but it's not great. The Elden Beast is quite a stunning visual in a way, but also lame. I don't know. Never was a fan of that fight entirely. Yeah, interesting. All right, Godskin Duo. So this is just the Godskin stuff combined, and you kind of already know the tricks, and it's just frustratingly silly. I it's definitely better than the Godskin Apostle, just because it's trying to be more obnoxious. So I'll at least put it C tier, but it's really just a repeat. That's all. Milena Blade of Nicola. I think she is right here with Dragon Lord plus Placidus up at the S tier. Fantastic fight, crazy challenging, really cool. Again, I love those fights where you're fighting against a human-sized opponent, and you get to just have a challenge. So good. Yeah, really awesome. Regal Ancestor Spirit, like both times. I never really enjoyed this fight because it just seemed kind of derpy, and it's just derpy. So it's to me it's a D tier, and I don't know why it's a D tier other than it just felt derpy, and I think it's because of something that's coming up next or a few down. Magma Worm Makar, we fight like 12 million of these, and they're fun the first couple times, and that's about it. I think they're C tier. They're average. They're nothing memorable other than you go, oh, cool, Magma Worm. It's like almost a dragon because they got a dragon heart, but not entirely a dragon. So cool, whatever. Leonine Misbegotten. What a simple fight, and yet I'm gonna actually put him in A tier because he always is memorable to me. I always want to go down to South Laurnia, no Limgrave, sorry, to the little island, just to fight him, just to be down there, because I love the sword that he gives you, and just his fight just gives you this idea of, again, a human sized kind of foe, just slightly bigger, but not like dragon size, and you get to have some challenge there, and it's cool. It's a really neat aesthetic, and you also get to help the goober defending the castle, and you can bring him into it, and he's pretty awesome, and it's fun to watch him. Yeah, really neat, really good stuff. Flying Dragon Egg Heel. I'm kind of shocked they put him in here, and not like Tree Sentinel as well. It's funny. So Egg Heel's the one in the lake, right? I think so. Anyway, he's a dragon. He's not the memorable dragon, other than he's like one of the first ones you fight. So there's that, I guess. Cool, but he's not like the cool dragons. I don't know. More so, he's just memorable because he just randomly hurts you like crazy hard unless you level up and then come back later. So I think he's more memorable than like Loretta and Godskin Duo, Godric the Grafted. You know what? Godric the Grafted definitely more than Godskin Duo. And yeah, there we go. Yeah, let's adjust that. There we go. Yep. Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing. Okay. Hot take. I know you might not agree, and that's okay. I actually find him as like the bottom end of S tier, and here's why. All right, so let me explain. I love that he does the Incredibles thing of the bad guy from the first movie, where he just goes, "You caught me monologuing," and you can do tons of damage to Gideon Ofnir before the fight even begins because he just talks, and it's. I've had moments where I've actually had random challenge with him, like the first one or two times, and then once I figured him out at all, you're like, oh, this guy's the easiest person in the game. But he's so interesting because really the story around him makes him fascinating, and that alone, like that should give you something to just hang your hat on. Like the story alone is fascinating about him. That he's telling you, you are no Elden Lord, you can't do it, blah 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 blah. You suck, don't try. And then he's following behind in your footsteps, getting all the information and doing all the stuff after you do it for him. And then getting to actually beat the snot out of this dude that has been lying to you and tricking you the whole game. so satisfying in the game, right? So satisfying. And I think that's really the case. Like, his fight isn't necessarily the hardest fight at all. It's just the fact that why it happens and how much of a jerk he is just makes you go, oh, you wanted to fight? You followed me? You're taking my spot? Game on. I love that. All right. Anyway, next thing is our Estelle, Natural Born of the Void. Aesthetically, this is the most creepy epic fight I have ever experienced, and I think, oh, this is hard. He's definitely an S tier for me. I might actually put him above Ricard. I love the aesthetic, and you get to fight it twice if memory serves. There's two versions of him where he does basically the same movesets or close to it. Really cool, really beautiful, and we get to see some of these things throughout the game, but fighting a full on epic version is something else. And the spells and things, once you figure them out, they're not hard. They're just really strong, and it's just a fascinating fight because this bug is so different than other things in a way. I really appreciate that. All right, last two we have Dragonkin Soldier. Cool. I don't know. I think the Fire Giant is better than this, but it's slightly better than a Regal Ancestor Spirit because I remember fighting it and just going, wait, there's just this random boss here. Some of these I'm like, where's Tree Sentinel if we're doing Dragonkin Soldier? But anyway, yeah, very, very interesting. And this is a thing that's throughout the game, full-grown Falling Star Beast. What to say about this? Where to rank this thing? I don't know. They really are obnoxious to me because they just have random resistances and they just hit like freight trains. And they're just obnoxious when you have to fight them in certain areas. I think it's more interesting than Magma Worm Makar, but they're just an obnoxious boss that's meant to just do things that throw you off. So I'll put it C tier. It's not bad, but it's not good to me. Yeah. Let's go back through my S tier. Dragon Lord Placidusax, absolutely. Melina, yes. Godfrey, heck yeah. Estelle, very much so. So much fun. Rykart, a blast. Godskin Noble, I really do. I really like that fight because it just shocked me when all of a sudden this massive ball of skin is rolling at me and I don't know what's going on. Star Scourge Radon, so satisfying to finally beat him. Malekith the Black Blade, it's a challenge of a fight that really tests you in different ways. Getting Ofnir, yeah, he's S tier just because you get to beat him up. Yeah, man, it's so hard because sometimes the place you fight some of these makes all the difference. And then it's funny, like Melina, can't ever say her name right. Melina, Blade of Mikla. The area you fight her in is kind of boring, right? It's down in the bottom of a root tree, which kind of makes sense with what she is, but it doesn't matter because of her herself. And then phase 2, she is the thing that is in a way enchanting because of all the spell casting and other things that's happening from her. Yeah, and some of these they're bad just because they're lame or they're the places that you fight them. Like Regal Ancestor Spirit, it's a derpy fight, and plus the place you fight's often, I think it's both times in a cave, and you're just kind of there, and there's not much going on. Just it's like puddles of water, and that's about it. And Fire Giant, is annoying because he just has silly, massive AoEs, and it's just boring because you just know unless you're perfect on certain timings, you're going to get hit by something. But yeah, I think that's where I would rank them as far as the ones I enjoy the most and look forward to fighting every time. Yeah, I will say I'm going to move up Radagon over Morgott. Yeah, because This is hard. You know what? I'm gonna move Bernala up just to A because I enjoy fighting her every time. She's not hard, but I just enjoy the fight. And every so often, she surprises me and gets off some random hit that just wrecks me. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? And I have to run back to her and fight her again. And I'm like, okay, that was good. That was good. Well played. And I appreciate that. I think this is the fun of Elden Ring is you're getting into some beautiful, beautiful game as a whole. You know, maybe we'll do another list sometime of mini bosses or catacombs bosses. That'd be interesting, right? Yeah. Well, what do you think? What's your top spot for Elden Ring bosses? Because I think we always have different opinions, and obviously there's a few that probably for most of us stand out, and I hope I've hit some of those that we all go, yeah, I enjoy. Is Rykard up on the top of your list just because he's entertaining as all get out, just to have that power trip of here's the token item to defeat him? Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'd love to hear your comments down below. And we can have a discussion about this because Elden Ring's getting DLC soon, and maybe we can make a new list soon on that. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Take care, and I've been Cody from the Keepers of Nerdom. Bye, y'all.